Okay, so we'll get started. So hi everyone, my name is Emma Dodd, a support consultant here at Talis, and I'm really pleased today to be hosting a webinar on wellbeing and supporting students presented by the University of Exeter. So we've got Simon and Lee who will be taking us through what the University of Exeter have been doing to support students with wellbeing, which we know is a really hot topic, an important area at the moment. So just want to double check that you are able to hear me okay and that you can see this slide. So yeah, please do confirm that you're able to, and if there's any problems during the webinar, let us know from the question box. It's also to advise you as well that we are recording this session, so it can be referred to, or if you want to share with colleagues as well. So without further ado, I will just transfer over to Simon and Lee at Exeter. So just bear with me one moment. Okay, Simon, so I've just unmuted you and should have the permission to share your screen now. And I can see your slides.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you can see the slides and hear me, hopefully.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
to both
brilliant.
of those. Yeah, so yeah, I'll hand over to Simon and Lee now, and be able to take some questions that you have at the end. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Emma. Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar on Talis reading lists and wellbeing support here at the University of Exeter. My name is Simon Foote. I'm the Taught Courses Support Coordinator, so I look after the reading lists here at Exeter, and I'm joined by my colleague Lee Snook, who's one of our Liaison Librarians. I'll be giving you a quick overview of our reading list setup and the university, and then we'll look at how we've used reading lists as part of our wider wellbeing and inclusivity agenda within the University of Exeter Library. There we go, sorry about that, little technical problem at the beginning. Right, so a quick introduction to us. Exeter is a Russell Group university with 3 campuses, 2 in Exeter and 1 based down in Cornwall at Penryn near Falmouth. This is the one at Falmouth is a shared campus with the University of Falmouth. And this is the main Streatham campus here in Exeter. The arrow shows where we are currently located as we talk to you. You might be able to see me wave, I don't know. Okay. We currently have around 25,500 students. 25,500 students. That's 20,000 undergrad and about 5,500 postgrad, and supporting them are about 4,400 staff, both academic and professional. And the university is divided into 6 main colleges with around 39 subject departments. And just on the screen you can see the websites for some of our colleges that we deal with. So the library is part of our professional services department. There are 4 physical libraries, 2 on our main Streatham campus site here in Exeter, 1 on our smaller St Luke's campus, also in Exeter, and 1 on our Penryn site, which is a shared campus between Falmouth and Exeter. The library is 24/7, 365, with much of it being self-service, and only 3 of those libraries are actually staffed. We provide extensive digital and physical academic information resources, including more than 1.3 million ebooks and 1.2 million physical library resources. And we've got subscriptions to over 60,000 journal titles, and library users access more than 2 million journal articles online every year. And then on to our reading list service, which we started in 2012. and then it was a basic digital replacement for photocopies, which we held in what we called our high demand collection. And then this academic year, 2019 and 2020, we are doing around about 1,500 lists using Talis Aspire embedded by LTI into our VLE, and all those lists are created by our 15 library assistants, information assistants, alongside all the other library work that they need to do. So I'll just sort of briefly talk about our alternative formats that we do with, in the reading list service. We work with AccessAbility, which is part of the university's Wellbeing team. And AccessAbility can support students with specific learning difficulties by developing an individual learning plan, so ILP, for each student. An ILP ensures that reasonable adjustments are put in place in order to remove barriers that may prevent the student from participating at university. So the idea is that each academic teaching a module that the student is registered on is required to send a reading list to us here at the library and include a note that there is a requirement for digital format for resources in order to help a particular student. To be honest, that doesn't always happen, but we do liaise a lot with accessibility team and with the individual students with an ILP anyway, to ensure that we're providing the best access to the resources that they need. So we check the format of all the items on the reading lists. We can usually purchase an ebook if we only have a print copy, and this is in line with our library digital first policy. If the item is only in print, we can take steps to ensure the student has access to the content in digital format, and we can do that in several ways by searching the RNIB Bookshare platform for content. If available, we can request digital format for individual use through the British Library Document Supply Service. We can contact the publisher to obtain single-use digital format and then send the student an individual use link. We can scan the material in-house here in the library and make digital format available to a single student. And we can encourage students and staff to convert files to alternate formats using the Census Access platform. We've only been doing this since last summer, but the feedback so far has been really positive and the students really appreciate the service that we're providing. It is time consuming for us at the start, but actually I think it probably saves a lot of time and hassle later on, because we're not having to deal with urgent inquiries in the sort of the general library email or phone system from students who need access to reading material for sort of like next week or something, and then we're rushing around trying to sort it out. So if we get all of this sorted out before the module starts, we make sure that all of the resources are accessible to that student, it's definitely worth the time. I'm actually going to pass you over to my colleague, Lee Snook, who's going to talk about something about our wellbeing, our wider wellbeing support here at the University of Exeter Library. Lee.
Thank you, Simon. Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm going to talk to you about the work we've been doing in the library on lots of different aspects of wellbeing support. I'm sure, like us, you've seen that wellbeing has risen up the agenda in your universities. Particularly here, we've had a huge rise in the amount of students reporting to wellbeing on a range of different issues. And to be fair, when we kind of saw that happening and considered what we were doing in the library, really we're only referring people on to the university wellbeing services. And we had an awareness really that we needed to look more comprehensively at our services to see what we could do. So in around May last year, 2019, a small library team came together to have a little think about the issues. It was fairly informal. We weren't tasked by management. We didn't have a particular agenda we had to address. We just wanted to think amongst ourselves to see how we could start small and see what we could put in place. So a small group of us, mainly from the library liaison team, and that's the team that I belong to, subject librarians, you'd probably be referred to elsewhere, so the team that do the teaching and the liaison with the academic departments. A few of us came together, did a little bit of research to see what was happening out there in other universities, to see what good practice we could find. We also had a quick look at the literature to see if people had shared examples of their good practice, and had a think about then what could we adopt within the library here, bearing in mind that we are quite a small staff, and again, whatever we were going to put in place, we had to manage within our existing workloads, because we weren't looking at additional staff support in the library to support this. So we had to look at all that information out there, and also what we found particularly useful was to draw on networks around us. So our local public library, our Exeter Central Library here, we had fantastic support from them. We had a number of visits and chats with people who've been working in this area for much longer time than we had. And they gave us lots of great ideas, so we're really good about sharing expertise. We also called on expertise within the university, so our own university wellbeing team, who could highlight things to us such as which particular issues were particularly prevalent within the university population, what advice they were often passing on to students, and that gave us an idea of the kind of material we could offer through the library to support them. We also built up relationship with our University Social Mobility Centre, and that was particularly useful in terms of wellbeing with our mature students. So wellbeing issues that occur around looking after family, or financial considerations, maybe where people have given up full-time work to come back into education. So all those kinds of wellbeing concepts that maybe don't figure in the general young undergraduate population. It was great to get those expertise too. And we're also lucky that a range of different research groups within the university working on different aspects of wellbeing. And in particular, there's a welcome centre here at the university that had a loneliness and community project just getting underway at the same time as we started thinking about our wellbeing support. And loneliness, particularly in the student population, was one aspect of their project. And that's something we're going to be working more closely with them on, because space and kind of feeling at home in the library is one aspect we want to do more work on. So I kind of put up a roadmap of developments. This is kind of with hindsight. We certainly didn't start off with anything like this. I'll be honest, when we first came together, we thought from all the things we'd looked at and the people that we talked to, our first intention was just to get underway with this wellbeing book collection that I'm going to talk to you about in more detail. And lots of libraries have done that successfully. And our wellbeing service here had identified that as a gap. They wanted to point their students to self-help material, and the library seemed an ideal place to do that. So really, when we came together, this small group, to start working in this area, that's really probably fair to say that's all we had in mind at that point. But since then, our interest, our expertise, our knowledge of what's possible to do has grown over time, and we've kind of moved on along this road of bringing in a range of different developments. So I'll be talking you through those in turn. So how we moved from just setting up our book collection, how we worked with our LibGuides and our Talis, our reading lists, to promote the wellbeing materials, how that led to the introduction of a games collection, which sits alongside the book collection we have here. And then also how all kind of the experience of working in that area has led us to think about other inclusive library services that we ought to be looking at. And we're also just going to end with a look at where we may go in the future. So let's start with our wellbeing collection. So I mentioned we came together in May, a small group of us, to think about what we were going to do. We settled pretty early on developing this book collection and kind of tasked ourselves with making sure we introduced this for the start of term. We've just introduced it on 2 of our library sites at the moment and in prominent positions as you come into both of those libraries. We did manage to get it ready for the start of term. It was looking a bit of a worry at one point. We weren't sure we were going to quite hit that, but all came off in the end. And in those months between May and August, we set about deciding what books to include in the collection, getting them ordered, making them all available and displayed to our users through our normal library management system. So it was clear where they could find this material. And it is a dynamic collection, so we had it up and running for August, but we've been adding content to it over time. And certainly we'll be looking to keep this going, not as a static collection, but adding new material as we move forward. You've just got a few ideas of the kind of material that's available there, and I'm going to say more about that in a moment. What we did learn, because we did do this in a bit of a rush, I think it's fair to say, we had a huge panic. We ordered this new furniture. We wanted it to look different to our other library shelving, so it was obvious that this was something special about this collection. But it ended up with a huge lead time, and then finally it was almost here for the start of term, and it arrived flat packed. And I can't explain how we looked at it with such dismay, but luckily we talked nicely to our campus services people that came and built it very quickly for us. But lessons learned, we're going to pay more attention when we order material like this in the future. The other thing that we hadn't really thought about either, we thought about buying the material, but we hadn't thought about how to decorate the stand. And it wasn't really until the material was out there that perhaps colleagues with a better visual eye than us looked at it and kind of said, aren't you going to do something better than that for this? And thankfully, again, we said, oh, yes, please, what can you do for us? But again, our lessons to learn in the future is to think about getting all that marketing and promotion side all in place before you actually roll your material out for use in the library. So in terms of what's available in the collection, we've got a range of different material, and really it is widely defined. We've not got a huge list of rules of what can be in there and what can't. We're guided really by suggestions, but these are kind of the main categories of material. So we wanted fiction, so part of the wellbeing was just to have material available for general relaxation and enjoyment so that students can take a break from their studies and relax with a whole range of different sort of materials. We've got things like award-winning books, but just we look at the bestseller lists, that kind of material we'll buy fiction from. Obviously, we've got our self-help support materials, and that's what we were thinking of, particularly when we built the collection, so that when our wellbeing teams in the university want to provide material to support students in terms of self-help books on managing stress, managing exam stress particularly, or whatever conditions that they're looking at, we just try and buy material in those areas. And our wellbeing team are great at saying, we've noticed that this particular area is one that you need to build the collection in. So they'll even suggest titles or broad areas that we can look at. But there are a great list of books already out there, and we definitely use those to help us. So the books on prescription lists and the reading well schemes that our public library colleagues pointed us at were great, and they gave us a ready book list to pull from. We've also got things I've tagged it there, everyday life. This was all about maybe easing the transition for students. So all things to do with maybe living away from home for the first time. So how to cook, how to manage your finance, those kinds of books are also included. And then, yes, I've said community selection. So we have both a print and an online suggestion form, and we take whatever suggestions people would like us to include. And that's tended to be a mixture of fiction and self-help items so far that have come through. And we were also lucky that not so long ago, our students, as part of a students' change project, looked at mood-busting books, and they'd compiled their list of what they thought of as students, what they thought of as mood-busting books, and we made sure we bought those too. So we'd set up this collection, we had it all available. We also then needed to think how we were going to promote this so that everyone knew it was there, and so that we could get feedback on how useful it was or what we needed to do to improve it further. So we decided that we would use a combination of our LibGuide software and our Talis reading list software. So I'm guessing most of you are familiar with the Talis reading lists as we're here as part of the Talis community for this webinar. Many of you may use the LibGuides as well. So LibGuides is an online platform we use for lots of our library information. So guides about library services. In the liaison team, we use it to train students for online training, how they can make use of our resources. So we decided to use those two in combination, and for a number of reasons. Number one, I said, yes, they were existing services, so we already had that software available to us, and we were familiar with using that to communicate with our library users. That takes me on to point two, and that's yes. So our library users were used to using LibGuides and the reading lists already. So both staff and library users were familiar with them. But also we could use this content wider than just the university, and both those services allow us to do that. So we could share the work that we've done with our public library colleagues and with visitors to the university. We also found them easy to use. We have some systems in the university that are not easy to use. I'm thinking of our finance systems, and our BLE has some particular challenges as well. But in comparison to those, LibGuides and Talis, so much easier for us to get our heads around and quickly and easily develop content. And they're also both flexible. So we knew, particularly as we started this project, that we'd start off looking at wellbeing books, but we didn't really know where our work in wellbeing was going to take us. And LibGuides and reading lists can be used flexibly to look at different themes. And you'll see when you see some of the examples of the LibGuides, we can expose all sorts of content that way. So we're pretty confident if we use these, we could utilise them however our work took us in the future. Also, because this was a new area to us, we wanted to be able to check what value this work had for our library users. So we were pleased that both these LibGuides and Talis, as well as our library management system, can help us look at take-up of the service. So we can pull off things like usage stats. We can ask for feedback through our LibGuides to see how useful these developments were. So to give you an example, you've got on screen here how we're using both the LibGuides and the Talis lists in combination. So on the left, you've got our LibGuide, our Wellbeing and Leisure Collection LibGuide, which highlights all the materials that we've made available in that Wellbeing book collection, but also flags other related information such as public library services. So the LibGuides are really flexible. We can do a whole range of different things like upload documents, videos, quizzes. We can put a whole range of different sorts of content there. And you can see we've got embedded into the LibGuide the Wellbeing and Leisure Talis list, and this is where we have used the reading list software to arrange all of that wellbeing material into topics in terms of self-help. You can see some of those listed there, and we've also used it just to help us manage the fiction collection. And again, this is why Talis was particularly useful for this, because we could group things by topics and arrange them in the way that works with our wellbeing teams. They would advise how they wanted us to kind of curate that material. So that's our wellbeing LibGuide and list. And that we had up and running for the start of term. And we had good initial feedback and lots of suggestions of material that we could add to it. So we're pretty happy, even though we did it in kind of a low-key way, that went well. So once that was in place, we started to think about what we might do next. And it was as we were approaching the Christmas break, and particularly because we've been talking to that loneliness research group that I flagged earlier about kind of student loneliness at the university, we were aware as we approached Christmas that lots of students go away, go back to their families for Christmas, but also in Exeter with a large international cohort, lots of our students don't go away at Christmas, and they continue to live on campus. They continue to use the library as it's open 24/7, but it's a much different experience, so much quieter. It's not the vibrant campus that it normally is. So we thought introducing a games collection might be a nice time to do it over that Christmas break and encourage the students that were remaining on campus to come and use those materials and to try to just help them interact with each other, you know, and do the traditional things that maybe we would do at Christmas, play the odd board game. So again, you can see it's low key. We did it alongside our normal day-to-day work. We just said to our library management, you know, can we have a small budget? We spent just under £200, asked for donations. Our library staff were great. They brought in unused games they all had lurking at home. And we made, again, you can see a similar stand that we used for our book collection. We made this stand available in our 24/7 library at Christmas, and it houses a range of things. So it's board games, it's chess, it's Ludo, it's Scrabble, those kinds of things, jigsaws, and art supplies. So this was the idea about kind of art therapy, how colouring can de-stress you, and there's some things they can make as well. So all that kind of material. And really, we just decided to put it there so that over the Christmas period, we want to promote this social interaction for those that were left on campus. So to give them an activity kind of to bond over. But also because we wanted to leave this available longer term, and it's now become a permanent feature in the library, just for general relaxation for students as well, so they can take time out away from their studies. And again, if they're using the library in the early hours, which many do over the weekend, it just means they can relax as well as getting on with their academic work. And again, what did we learn that we hadn't really thought about? Well, kind of the jigsaws only came about through staff donations, but they've been the most popular part of the collection. They haven't so much helped with the social interaction. There just seem to be jigsaw people who want to come and do it on their own and actually look a bit upset if somebody else has done a bit when they weren't looking. So it has pleased them, but it hasn't really helped on the community side. When we set this up, we expected the materials to be used within the library. Again, we were thinking maybe evenings, weekends, people would just come in and use the material. But almost immediately that we put the material there, we had our student societies and the wellbeing team saying, oh, we've got these events elsewhere on campus, can we actually use this material there? And we hadn't really thought about that, but yeah, we said, yes, please make use of it. And that has been really popular. We've had great feedback. Our student union, it's called the Guild here at Exeter. Their vice president in charge of welfare has been really complimentary about it and said, you know, it's been great out there in the student community. So although we haven't intended that, that's been a really great part of it. What else did we learn? Well, it's this balance, I guess, between providing access and making this a nice collection and security. And we decided we weren't going to put some draconian issuing system in. We weren't going to put security on it. We were just going to put it out there and trust the community to use it. This in the spirit in which we hope they would share it as a community. Unfortunately, some parts have gone missing. You can see our Uno missing poster. We had a few different versions of Uno and they disappeared within kind of days. So I guess they're small, pocket size. That's what we've learned. Nobody's taken away our huge board games. They've been pretty safe. So you just have to be prepared that you may lose items. And we knew that when we started it, but as I said, we didn't want to put in a whole load of security. So we've just factored that in and realised it's going to happen. So this gives you a bit more of a flavour of what's available, the different art therapy, the board games, etc. Again, you can see we've used LibGuides to promote this aspect of our wellbeing work. And that, as I said, is where LibGuides are great for this. You can use them for all kinds of different activities. And we can use this LibGuide, we push it out to our usual communication route. So it's gone into things like student newsletters out on our social media. So we can gather all the information together on the LibGuide and then just push out other comms around that. So we started thinking about, as I say, books and then moved into games. But as we started working in this area, it just made us realise really that there was a huge amount of work for us to do in terms of broader inclusivity of the library services. And just through talking to the different people at the university, it exposed us to kind of other aspects we hadn't appreciated or been involved in so far. And it's really helped us strengthen our partnership working with a whole range of different teams. And I've listed some of the teams we've worked more closely with there. And maybe if I just flag our transition service, so kind of in working in this area, it allowed us to work with a transitions conference that the team here at the university put on and go in and develop and deliver library sessions to students as they move into university life. So it's helped kind of broaden the reach of the library in lots of different ways. It also, just particularly as we looked at what other good practice was there out there, and made us think about different aspects of inclusivity. And we've worked to produce kind of LibGuides and Talis lists in other areas as well. So I flagged a few here. These are recent campaigns that we've worked on. That's promoting our LGBTQ resources and our Black History Month promotion resources. But also the things that we've learned by pulling together LibGuides and Talis lists is that we can use them for other promotional campaigns as well. So we've had a climate change promotion, and these same routes that we've taken of creating a LibGuide and using a Talis list have worked across all those areas. So I'll just quickly flag those to you so you can see how kind of flexible it is to rework them. So we've got here our LGBTQ LibGuide and accompanying Talis list. And this material we also use within our talk programmes. So we've got a range of modules on gender, on sexuality, lots of our social science humanities courses, and we can kind of use this material within those modules too. And then there's an example of our Black History Month LibGuide. So again, you can see similar sorts of content, and you can see how broadly you can use them for all kinds of different campaigns. And I've also captured just an example. It's our library entrance. We've got a huge digital screen at our entrance, and that again has worked really well hand in hand with the LibGuides and with the promotions. And we can kind of cross-share material across from the LibGuide to our digital screens. And we tend to think people are kind of poster and screen blind. They never notice any material we put up in the library. But we have had students come to us and say, actually, it was great, those slides you had up about. So we had it in particular with this campaign with our Black History Month, students asking, could we share the material we placed on the screen? So although we've kind of drawn back and don't put out so much poster and other material in the library because we kind of concluded nobody read them, we found as long as we refresh our large screens often, they are still proving useful for us. And then this was just the other example to show you that we don't just use these techniques in our inclusivity work. So when the university here declares a climate emergency, we built a LibGuide and again a reading list to support the work that the library was doing to contribute to the climate emergency, all the different things that were going on at the university here. So in terms of next steps, well, there's a huge amount we could do. So we're not saying we're experts by any means, but just sharing with you kind of the steps that we've taken to date. But on our radar of things to do is to look at our library space. At the library that we're in at the moment had a refurbishment and was kind of new about 2012. So, you know, it's getting on for a decade old now. Some of our other library sites are even older than that. And we recognise that maybe the space is not quite fit for purpose at the moment. And coming out of maybe the loneliness project that I flagged earlier, some people are saying the library space actually makes them stressed. And obviously that is not what we're wanting to do. So looking at how we can redevelop our library space is high up our agenda. Family-friendly space. So we've recently had people come to us and say when they come in, if they have to bring their children with them, they want to get on with their own work in the library, but be happy that their children can play and be in a safe place. And our library space isn't really set up for that. So we've got contained space, but it tends to be maybe silent study that obviously you don't want children running around and being noisy in, but we do want to provide that kind of facility. So we need to think about how we can provide that. We're waiting to see what comes out of that loneliness project to see what suggestions they might have. Initially, their conclusions seemed to be there were things we could do around artwork, there were things we could do about plants, simple things like that that could just make the library seem a bit more like home, that could help with some of these feelings of loneliness and isolation. So we'll be working with that research project to see what we can learn from them. And then the other inclusivity issue we've got on our agenda, I'm sure many of you have as well, is kind of how we decolonise our collections. So, you know, our university collections have been built up over a long time, and the collection policies there would have been driven obviously by prior curriculum. They tend to reflect main publishers here in the UK and the US. They tend to be influenced by large maybe journal packages. So there's much more we could do about being more inclusive about where we draw the material in our collections from. So that's a big area, and obviously it's one that the whole university library sector is looking at. But we'd very much like to hear your ideas too. So if you're working in this area and maybe you're doing things we haven't flagged here today, we would love to hear about those. But if you have any questions for us at the moment on anything that you've heard so far, we'd very much like to hear from you. So I think we can pass back to Emma.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much, Lee. And yes, back to you, Emma, for questions.
Yeah, thank you, Simon Lee. That was just fascinating, and the range of resources and things and incentives you've done to support students. Yeah, I could listen to you all day on that. It sounds fascinating, really supportive. So yeah, as the team at Exeter have said, if you've got any questions or if you would like to share in the comments box a summary of what you've been doing at your institutions, it would be great to hear from you to share that. Well, just a question for myself, just while the attendees are thinking, have you had any direct student feedback on this collection and on these areas, or comments or things like that? What have you gathered from students?
Yeah, so our guild, so our students' union, have been great at giving us feedback. They've been particularly complimentary about the games more than the book collection, but I think that's because it's helped with just activities throughout the university. So you know, bringing the students together. So those have been particularly welcomed, and they've really helped us then kind of secure funding so that we can continue this. It was really just set up as a little pilot to see what we could do. We've had such great feedback on that. That's the one that's really taken off with the student population, direct feedback from them. But our wellbeing team are kind of constantly, you know, getting in touch with us and saying, you know, it's this issue that we're currently seeing lots of students about at the moment, and it would really help if you could buy more books in this area, and then we can kind of track. So we don't have direct feedback from the students, but we kind of get the nod from wellbeing. Can you buy more of this material? We place it in the collections. We can see it's being used, but yeah, we sort of get that kind of usage feedback, I suppose.
Yeah, that sounds great. So you're responsive to the demands that and the sort of queries that they're having. So you know, very much working as a partnership on that, which sounds great. And as you said, it is still relatively early days, isn't it? It's easy to forget when you see how much you've already done on this. We've got a question from a gainer who has asked, do you have an institutional licence for census access, and is there an associated cost?
Oh,
we don't know is the answer to that, but we will find out. And if I don't know how, Emma, can we tell you somehow, and then we can let?
Yeah, I can share that. Yeah, I was just wondering if I knew it's not something that I'm aware of myself. So yes, Ganny, we've got your email address from registering, and Simon and Lee can let me know that after the webinar, and I'll share that with you.
There probably was
that
a cost.
Would be really helpful.
Yeah, we work with it on our wellbeing team, so it may be well that they cover the cost for it, and yeah, we're kind of doing the promotion of it again through our LibGuides, but we'll find out. Yeah, we'll find out for you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and again, so thank you for that. Kirsty has asked, do you weed the LibGuides and lists you create for various themes? For example, archive those that you no longer wish to update or delete them?
Yes, we do, and it's a huge task, but we generally it's the library liaison team that kind of looks after the LibGuides, and we kind of split them up amongst us as to who has them. But yeah, we have like a general housekeeping, so we go through, and the LibGuides are great in terms of telling you with great detail about not just which guides are used, but which parts of guides have used. So we kind of use all that to decide, well, you know, either nobody's looked at this guide at all, we can probably get rid of the whole thing, or we can see that people have used maybe it's a video on a guide, or they've downloaded a document, and we then use that information, and we'll either edit the guides, or yes, we just kill some off completely if they don't seem to be of any use anymore. And similar to the TALIS list, we can see which items are being used and which are not.
Okay, no, that's brilliant. A really good question as well, Kirsty, thank you. Andrew has asked, do you keep any wellbeing materials outside the library? So for example, in other areas of the campus?
There will be obviously within our wellbeing teams, so where students have one-to-one appointments with a wellbeing team, they have some kind of self-help materials there, but on the whole, you know, that might be more kind of the pamphlet type material. I think they've decided wellbeing wise they would try and place the material in the library, and mainly I guess because we're the 24/7 part of the university campus, so the idea is to place most of it there, and then it has its most accessible use from us.
Yeah. You did mention about it being by the entrance as well, didn't you, Lee? That it was like prominent. Yes,
that's right. So as you come into both of our libraries, really prominently placed at the entrance there, and I mean, we do have a digital first policy, but we deliberately for the wellbeing decided we would buy print material, and it was flagged at the start by some people that people might not want to approach the stand. You know, some people might even feel a bit uncomfortable about going taking wellbeing material. So, but we do have options if people want us to buy things electronically and use things that way. You know, we'll still do that as well. So we're happy to be guided by however people are happy to use the material and whatever format they want to use it in.
Brilliant, thank you. There aren't any further questions. I will just ask again if there is anyone who's online who wants to share who approaches and different things that they've done towards wellbeing, or I'm sure if you want me to share contact details, you know, if they want to share it outside of the webinar, let me know. Kirsty has asked, what's the best way you have found to encourage students to suggest materials for purchase? And have you purchased material in other languages?
I don't know we specifically bought Wellbeing in other languages. We've got a library champion scheme here at the university. So that is where in each discipline we recruit every year students who are interested in working with the library, and they're kind of our easy conduit out to the student population, so we can say to them, you know, we're building up our wellbeing collection. Can you see if you can get any suggestions from your fellow students? So that kind of works well. Other than that, as in the liaison team, we tend to see people regularly for things like one-to-one appointments, and often it's just chatting with people. We put out printed and online book suggestions. We have had some items in that way, but it tends to be more either through conversations between us and students, or between this Library Champions network, that we get more direct suggestions in.
Yeah.
And we've got, sorry Emma, we've got the little boxes by the climate change display, haven't we, as well, to put the students to put feedback.
Yeah, we've just got
a lot with that.
We've had a few. We're getting just suggestion boxes. If they want to do it like completely anonymously, people can just pop suggestions into a little box for us to pick up. Yeah, we get some, but I'm not going to say we get a huge amount that way. We still tend to get more when we're actually prompting and having a conversation with people.
Okay, brilliant. I'll just refresh one more time and the questions, and just switch over to my slides just to share. We do monthly community webinars, and alongside our product update webinars as well. So these are just a reminder of some of the ones that we've got upcoming. So our monthly product update is on the 25th of this month, and then at the start of April we'll be holding a community webinar on making the most of Talis Insight Europe. And then can't believe we're talking about May already as well, but we're also holding our annual rollover refresher webinar as well on the 13th of May. So I'll just check the questions box another time. Okay, so there isn't any more questions. So yeah, just a reminder that Talis Insight registrations are open. We're in an all new venue at the ICC in Birmingham at the end of April. So we have got the agenda online, and you can register now at talis.com/insight. I'll just refresh one more time, see if there's any more questions. Simon and Lee, I just want to thank you for your time this afternoon. It's been brilliant to hear the strategies and the approaches that you've done to wellbeing for the benefit of your students, and the inclusivity as well. To everyone online, I hope that you've found that useful, and yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing your other ideas and approaches. I hope you all have a really good rest of your Wednesday, and I'll speak to you all soon, and thank you again, Simon and Lee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone, bye.